Hi, welcome to the coaching video for week 7. Glad that you're here, and we're going to dive right into the new material because by now I'm sure you're familiar with the format of beginning with prayer, warming the students up, and then bringing some new material to them. Well, the new material this week starts out with what I call a pop quiz. For the first time, they pick up a pencil or a pen and they fill in some things on their paper. And so you've got a chart there in your page where they can fill in the 1, 4, and 5, 7 chords for the 5 common guitar keys, and that's C, D, E, G, and A. So give them a few minutes without a lot of instruction and see if they can come up with the 1, 4, and 5, 7 chords in those keys without any instruction. You'll find that some of your students have got it down pat and some of them are still struggling with what that means and how to remember those. Well, the next page shows you a simple mnemonic device. We've come up with 5 little sentences that can help them memorize what the keys are, what the 1, 4, 5, 7 are in the 5 different guitar keys. And these are all little biblical truths made up by a very creative 10-year-old, actually. And so for the key of C, you have Cain failed God, C, F, and G. Key of D, Daniel got arrested. Key of E, Elijah ate bread. My favorite, the key of G, God can't die, G, C, and D. And for the key of A, you have Adam ditched Eve. Don't ever forget, that's what happened in Genesis. And then at the bottom of that page, you've got a few more things where they can fill in some answers, and that will help them really get that idea of chord families down pat. We're going to continue to work on that this week and next week, and so by the beginning of, or by the end of beginning 101, they should have their chord families really well learned and really well memorized. Well, let's move to a new skill. The skill this week is the contemporary strum pattern. I'm sure a lot of you know this. If you don't, it's definitely one you ought to find out and ought to learn. It's down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up, down. Now, you probably know this pattern already. What I try to show my students is that the hand never actually stops going up and down. It's like a pendulum. It just goes up and down, but we choose which strums we're going to use and which ones we're going to leave out. Now, at first it can be very difficult for them to replicate this, but what I usually do is begin strumming it on an easy chord like E minor and have them strum along. Seems like usually maybe a third to a half of the class can immediately do it, so we just keep going with that. While others will struggle, they'll do one measure and then they'll pause as if they need to start the next measure. And it's kind of a tough skill for them to catch on to. But they can learn that. And the way the chord drills are designed this week actually helps that because the chord drills are done by ear. We do that this week and next week. Rather than giving them something written to look at, which they're cueing off of, now we're going to have them start cueing off of what they hear so that the skill is they hear it and they play it back. They hear it and they play it back. So in their chord drills, they're going to use tracks 28 through 33. They're just different chords, all of them using the contemporary strum pattern. And it could be that they pick this up within the week. It could be that it takes several weeks for them to pick it up. But using tracks 28 to 33 will probably be their best way to get that. And the count, again, if you want to help them have something in their head, is down, down, up, down, 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 up, down, 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 up, down, up, and so forth. And sometimes if they can say that and get that little rhythm of saying it, they can then strum it along with saying it. The new chord this week is the B minor chord, and generally people do not like the B minor chord. It doesn't have a lot of sound to it. It's just a little 4-string chord. They actually are okay with the chord. It's changing from something else to that chord that they find difficult. For example, from a D to a B minor is a common change, or from an A to a B minor. And that's a pretty big leap for the beginning guitarist. So just encourage them to continue working with it. It's not a really common chord, but it's one they need to know in order to know all of their open chords. Now, B minor is also the first chord they've ever learned where they have a finger on each of the strings. And so rather than talking about a bar chord, which we eventually will get to, what we will teach them is that this is a movable chord. And because there's a finger on each string, they can actually move the entire shape up 1 fret, and it's still a chord. They can move it up another fret. Matter of fact, they can move it anywhere on the neck of the guitar. Now, I wouldn't bother trying to tell them this is B and this is C and this is C sharp. That's not really helpful to them at this point. The only concept they need to know is that they can move it up and down the neck and that it's still a chord because every string has a finger on it. All right? Another concept I like to teach with B minor at this point, and this is just a little tip, you may or may not want to teach this, but string 5, it's so difficult on these little 4-string chords to keep string 5 from ringing out and accidentally sort of including that in the chord. When I have an opportunity, like on a B minor, I like to take whatever finger is on string 4 and move it over just a bit, just to barely touch string 5, so that it gives me a little more room for error. And if I touch string 5, it doesn't ring out. Okay, so I've got that finger right here just barely touching string 5. And just as it's still doing its job on string 4, but it is just barely muting string 5. All right? Okay, then move on and give them their new song for the week and work with that on this week. And then the chord drills, again, realize that they're all by ear. And you might want to put those tracks on and really work with those chord drills in class to help them begin to get the contemporary strum pattern. And also remind them that this is a great strum pattern for easy rock. It's good for a lot of country music, and it's also good for contemporary music. Just has sort of a light feel. Things that are in 4 that have sort of a medium pace sound really good with this chord. And we're going to end this week with Psalm 29, verses 1 through 2. This is one of my favorite verses that just really encapsulates what worship is really about. And to me, this is sort of a theme verse for all of Guitar Masters, all of what we're doing and what we're trying to teach them. And it says, "Ascribe to the Lord, O mighty ones, ascribe to the Lord glory and strength. Ascribe to the Lord the glory due His name. Worship the Lord in the splendor of His holiness." And I think there's plenty of ways you can go with that, but I love that verse because it says, ascribe to the Lord. In other words, give to the Lord what truly is His, what is due His name, what He deserves in the first place. And He deserves glory, and He deserves honor, and He deserves praise. And therefore, we should worship Him in the splendor of His holiness. Just a great worship verse. Now, the last thing for you as an instructor is that you want to definitely talk about the upcoming courses. By this time, you should definitely have given them in writing, probably by email and by printed material there in class, the dates for your next class, and times. And by this time, your students should also be deciding what they're going to do. What I've found is rather than them coming to me and saying, what do you recommend that I do? If I talk about the qualifications for beginning and repeating that, or for going on to Intermediate 201, they will almost always make the decision for themselves that I would make for them if they were letting me make that decision about continuing or repeating. And the qualifications are just this. Have you truly mastered, and use that word, have you truly mastered the material? Do you truly own the chords and the strum patterns and the songs that are in Beginning 101? If they can say, I really do own those, I really have mastered those, then they're ready to go on to Intermediate 201. Another thing that you might watch for is what I call a light bulb moment. We're at week 7, and this has probably started to happen a little bit, and I'm excited for you as an instructor because when you see the light bulb coming on for your students, there's almost no greater joy. When you see the students suddenly getting it, and they're suddenly beginning to change from chord to chord and continue strumming, and it sounds like music, it sounds like a song, and maybe they even begin to sing a little bit with that. Chances are, by this week, you have a couple of people who have hit that place. They've made it past that hump. Now, I would encourage you to debrief with those people. Ask them questions. How did you get there? When did it happen? Did it sort of come quickly, like over the period of a day or two? How did that happen for you? And they can almost always share with you their experience of, one night I was sitting there and it was feeling good and it just started coming out and suddenly everything we've been saying and trying made sense and it just got easier. And by the next night I picked it up and it was easy. I didn't even have to think about it. When your students can explain what it feels like to them to have that experience to get over the hump, the other students in the class will take great encouragement from that. Even if they're the students who are lagging behind, they will see that their day may be coming as well. So since you've got some light bulb people, let them explain what happened, because you've also probably got some tired people. Some people who are thinking, I don't know that I really am glad I got into this, but I'm going to gut it out and finish out my 8 weeks that I've already paid for, and I'm not getting my money back. So you'll have a few people like that. Hopefully the testimonies of those who have got it will encourage them to continue on. All right, that's all we've got for week 7. I hope you have a wonderful class, and week 8, it's coming up soon.